No one saw them coming, not because they were fast, not because they were silent, but because we had stopped looking up. Earth had grown quiet, not peaceful, just tired. After centuries of collapse, the nations had dissolved into scattered clusters, guarded by machines older than memory. Skies once filled with satellites were now empty lanes. The last global broadcast was a whisper from Mars 80 years ago. Since then, only static. And into that silence, they came. At 3:17 a.m. UTC, the upper atmosphere lit up in a way that hadn't happened in centuries, not with auroras or space junk, but with heat. Thick, glowing lines sliced across the exosphere, like claw marks. 6 vessels, shaped like inverted pyramids with molten cores, punched through orbit at speeds that made no physical sense. They didn't break, didn't announce themselves, just descended. They called themselves the HumAlien Dominion. We didn't hear the name at first. They weren't speaking to us. They were broadcasting across the galactic commons, boasting. Target acquired, Sol 3, minimal resistance, no known protectors, harvest phase commencing. The first city to vanish was Lagos, not bombed, not burned, just gone. A slow ripple, like water folding into itself, erased 90 square kilometers in seconds. By the time Earth's scattered defense systems noticed, 4 more cities had disappeared. Dubai, Santiago, Nagoya, Cape Town. Each one blinked off the map. Not even a scream left behind. They expected panic. They got silence. That confused them. So they pushed harder. Their orbital loudspeakers thundered in languages they didn't think we understood. Your world is ours. You are weak, forgotten. You have nothing. No one is coming. They didn't realize we'd heard that kind of voice before, and survived it. Somewhere in the Appalachian wastes, under layers of overgrown vines and rusted solar plating, a bunker door opened. It hadn't moved in 150 years. Inside, light flickered. Across a wall of names, Project Iron Veil. A woman stepped out, skin pale from stasis, eyes burning like a storm rekindled. She wasn't a general, not anymore. But once, just once, she had ordered the skies to burn. On the western seaboard, an old fisherman stopped his boat mid-net. His wristband, once thought long dead, buzzed with a sound he hadn't heard since the Exodus protocols, a single, piercing chime. Across the world, scattered survivors received the same pulse. Not from satellites, not from Earth, but from something, orbiting just beyond the moon. A relay no one had launched, a beacon no one remembered, until now. At 9:06 UTC, one of the HumAlien ships halted mid-air over Patagonia. It began to shake, not from attack, from inside. Seconds later, its surface cracked, molten blood spraying in arcs, before the entire vessel folded in on itself like collapsing bone. The other 5 ships stopped moving. Their broadcasts changed. Threat, anomaly, miscalculation, unknown Terran artifact activated. They finally realized Earth hadn't been left alone. It had been quarantined, but it was too late. From beneath the ice shelves of what was once Antarctica, ancient mechanisms awoke. Long, slumbering constructs, the size of cities, began to rise. Their surfaces bore no flags, no names, only warnings. Return was never abandonment, it was mercy. Across the stars in far-off galactic trade rings, whispers spread fast. Someone invaded Earth, followed by silence. And then a message, broadcast from deep within the Terran relay in an untraceable frequency. This is your only warning. Turn back, or learn what the others learned, the hard way. The HumAlien Dominion had shattered empires. They'd cracked Dyson spheres, bled black holes, even humbled the Greyland swarm. To them, Earth was nothing but a final scavenging stop on a dead-end arm of the galaxy. They called us the Dustlings. a footnote, species. But as they hovered above our battered world, confused by the silence, something unexpected happened. Earth answered. It started as static. On the Halveth mothership's bridge, an organic interface pulsed red. Their comm scribe, a pale-skinned psionic named Voan, snarled, "This planet is screaming, but not in fear." The sound was ancient, layered, carrying languages both dead and unborn, a single pattern repeating every 13.8 seconds, buried under cosmic noise. "You've come too close." Their war priest dismissed it. "Just old tech, broken warnings. Ghost." Signals from a defeated species. But then a second message broke through, clean, clear, and spoken in Halveth tongue. "Do not measure us by what you see. We left the light for a reason." Orbit side, the Terran relay station. The one hidden. Behind the moon, shifted. It had no engines. No visible weapons. Just a surface etched in deep, scar-like grooves and a core glowing dimly with unstable gravitational pulses. It sent no threats, no countdown, no demands. Just one brief flash into deep space. Coordinates. The Halveth ignored them. On Earth, beneath what was once the ruins of Siberia, a boy named Eris heard something strange while scavenging through a crumbled metro line. He was just 13, barefoot, mute since birth. But today, he spoke. He pointed at a broken wall, eyes wide with something ancient burning behind them, and whispered, "Wake the Sentinels." His mother froze. She knew that phrase from her grandmother's stories of watchers beneath the world, who only stirred if the skies turned black again. Meanwhile, the Halveth made a fatal decision. They deployed the Scorch Protocol. 2. Ships aligned above the Amazon cradle, where the last oxygen towers still fought to regrow atmosphere layers. Fire rained down. Plasma storms consumed hundreds of miles, but halfway through the burn, everything stopped. Not by force, by absence. Their weapons vanished, disintegrated mid-air. A cold wind rushed through space, carrying no heat, no particles, just a pressure the Halveth had never felt before. Shame. Back in the Dominion's archives, Earth had been marked as abandoned after the Sol collapse, a civil war that supposedly ended human civilization 300 years ago. No signs of recovery, no fleets, no colonies. Just ashes. What they didn't realize was that Earth had chosen to vanish, and not everything that disappears dies. Some things watch. On the dark side of Mercury, an ancient listening station blinked online. It hadn't been powered in 4 centuries. Inside sat one occupant, skin of carbon black weave, eyes filled with starlight, name unknown. She opened her mouth for the first time in decades. One word left her lips. Confirmed. The Halveth fleet began to panic, not because of what Earth had done, but because of what it wasn't doing. No retaliation, no missiles, no voice screaming in the dark, just silence and signals and shadows moving where no light reached. The mothership's commander, Voresh Khan, ordered a probe drop to Earth's surface, deep, into the Badlands once called Colorado. The probe barely touched the ground before vanishing into a chasm that hadn't been there seconds before. Its last transmission? "There are doors here, and they're opening inward." Then, from beyond the Kuiper Belt, 6 objects activated. Not ships, not weapons, just records. Each one projecting a single image into Halveth minds. Worlds burning. Terran ships disappearing into black holes on purpose. A face. Not human anymore. Staring back from the edge of reality, and a voice that whispered in a frequency only psionics could hear. "You broke the quarantine." In the galactic network, pirate channels lit up with chatter. Someone had tried to take Earth, and Earth didn't fight back. Because it didn't need to. It remembered. The Halveth Dominion had faced rebellion before. Rogue stars, collapsing alliances, even entire species resisting annihilation. But they had never encountered stillness like Earth's. It wasn't fear. It wasn't surrender. It was preparation. Orbiting above the Pacific, one of the Dominion harvesters deployed an atmospheric flare, a living machine that peeled away the upper sky to begin planetary consumption. It screamed the moment it entered Earth's lower cloud layer. An actual scream, biological, ripping, through every frequency at once. Then silence. The flare was gone, not shot, not deactivated, absorbed. In the crumbled mountain spines of Eastern Europe, old bunkers began to hum. Doors fused shut centuries ago now hissed open. Inside, forgotten systems booted up, glowing dim green, flickering against the dust. One screen blinked a line of code in Terran glyphs. Protocol, Gravemind, Wake, Code Black. Reinstated from within a cryo chamber, something stirred. Not quite human, not quite machine. It breathed, rasping against lungs filled with ancient nanodust. In orbit, the Halveth mothership began scanning deep crust layers, confused by the absence of response. They expected primitive defense grids. Instead, they found something far worse: empty space, hollowed-out chambers beneath entire continents, deeper than tectonic plates. Power signatures dating back 1,000 years, still faintly active, and one name repeating in corrupted human code: Sable Protocols. Online, the Halveth had no translation, but we did. It meant, do not awaken the dead. Across Earth, strange weather began to unfold. Lightning struck the same point in the Nevada wastes, 23 times in the same minute. Glaciers in the Andes vibrated from beneath, as if something was knocking from inside. In Johannesburg, children with no implants began speaking in code. One word kept repeating in every language, every dialect. The architects are returning. The Halveth Dominion did not believe in prophecy. They would soon regret that. On board the Halveth warship Obel Var, psionic Commandant Trevex attempted a deep mind probe on Earth's neural signature. Standard practice. Until it pushed back. What Trevex saw before his brain liquefied was broadcast through the command deck's psychic relay, a wall of skulls carved from dark glass, a world with two shadows, a woman with no face, smiling through blood, whispering, "You forgot why we vanished." Then the lights went out. Trevex collapsed, eyes burned out, screaming a word that didn't exist in any Halveth tongue. But every Terran survivor recognized it. Kiran Null. In the scattered ruins of the old world, small resistance groups, once considered isolated and helpless, began receiving coordinates from where? No one knew. But the signals were carried on bands older than modern encryption. Something was guiding them. One team unearthed a sphere the size of a heart, buried deep under what was once the Vatican. It pulsed once, then projected an image of Earth. Surrounded by something massive, coiled, silent. A message followed. The warden sleeps. Do not wake him unless the stars fall. Above, the stars were starting to move. The Halveth High Conclave met in emergency council. They had just lost 2 Dread-class ships. No battles, no enemies, just disappearances. And now, reports flowed in, shadows moving inside their own vessels, lights flickering in sealed storage bays, crew whispering in human tongues they'd never studied. It was spreading. Earth wasn't defending itself. It was infecting them. The final warning came not from Earth, but from a forgotten race on the edge of the galaxy, a species long thought extinct. Wiped out by the Halveth centuries ago, they sent a single, panicked burst to the galactic commons. We fled Saul centuries ago. We begged them not to follow. They've gone back. If the Terrans are awakening, run, before the grave dogs rise. No one knew what grave dogs were, but every species that had once mapped Earth's coordinates went silent. Again. The Halveth had made the greatest mistake in their empire's history. They didn't just invade a planet, they broke the lock. And what lay buried beneath Earth wasn't meant to be disturbed. The Halveth thought they were alone in Earth's orbit, that their massive ships blocked out the sky. But something else moved in the shadows of the magnetosphere, a shape without clear edges, a presence more than a craft. Every time the Halveth scanned it, it wasn't there until it blinked. Once. And every sentient on board their ships had the same shared hallucination, standing on a burning Earth, looking up and seeing themselves dying in every version of the future. In the Siberian Badlands, Eris, the mute boy who spoke, stood before a half-buried monument of obsidian. It wasn't there yesterday. Now it hummed, pulsing with heatless light. His mother tried to pull him back, but his feet were already rooted in the ground. "He's speaking to them," said a voice behind her. She turned. A woman in a weather-beaten coat, one eye missing, carrying a rifle so old it ran on filament. "Fuses." She knelt beside Eris. "They trained him in his sleep. All our children." "They're not just survivors anymore. They're keys." Deep below Antarctica's ice, vaults began to crack open. Metal sealed with molten stone and entropic chains split without pressure. Inside? Rows of pods, not cryo, not living, waiting. One of them opened. Inside was a man with no eyes. But he blinked. He pulled a shard of bone from his chest, inscribed with glyphs that screamed to machines nearby. A robotic voice chimed, "Override accepted. Welcome back, Warden." The man stood, and the ice began to bleed. In orbit, the Halveth still denied what they were seeing. They called in reinforcements. 4 more fleets began warping toward Sol. But halfway there, all long-range nav beacons vanished. They weren't jammed. They weren't offline. They had been moved. Earth wasn't the center of the problem anymore. Space itself was shifting. The map bent, and something ancient was redrawing the borders. The Dominion's second-in-command, Sorek Malven, took personal command of the planetary assault. He was old enough to remember the Greyland Swarm, where they lost billions. He thought Earth would be easier. That was before his ship's AI screamed itself into silence, before every mirror on board shattered inward, before his skin started remembering things he never lived through. Back on the surface, the world was moving. Deserts twisted, old cities flickered between ruin and restoration. Entire canyons reshaped themselves in minutes, like something underground was stretching. In old New Mexico, a survivor group uncovered a rail system not built by human hands, not alien either. They found a message etched along the metal in a language only known to pre-collapse Terran Black Ops. "When the stars tremble, unlock the dogs." And they did. 600 meters below the Nevada desert, the door opened. The vault had no hinges. It was a living gate, biometal and quantum flesh. And behind it stood creatures that once patrolled the edges of Terran-controlled space, long-spined, armored like extinction itself, silent, controlled only by scent. The grave dogs. They stepped out without sound, without growl, just one command, playing across their implanted thought rings. "Find the invaders. Don't kill them. Show them why." Sorek Malven's ground assault finally landed. 4 battalions, exosuits, psionics, void-burn artillery. Their goal, reach Earth's central relay buried beneath Africa's oldest mountains. They never made it, because they never landed. Their ships touched the ground and sank. The dirt drank them and left behind only bones. Shining bones, Terran bones. From deep in Earth's forgotten databanks, the last AI Guardian reactivated. Designation, Nora 9. Last directive. If soul is breached, initiate Echo Fall. What was Echo Fall? Not a weapon. A memory, broadcast across the stars, to every species that had once traded, warred, or fled from humanity. A voice, genderless, calm, and cold. We were not abandoned, we chose exile, to save you. In a sealed observation, bunker on Luna, a single child stared into the void and spoke in a voice that cracked glass. The lock was never for Earth, it was for them. The Halveth hadn't just broken a quarantine, they'd cracked the coffin lid, and Earth wasn't the tomb, it was the seal. In the silence of deep space, the Halveth dreadnought Karanak lost contact. One moment, it was preparing to orbit Mars. The next, gone. No explosion, no distress call, just a tear in reality, shimmering red where the ship had been, like space was, rejecting them. Sensors caught it. Barely, a fragment of the final transmission. We are inside the memory, and it remembers us. In northern Canada, beneath miles of permafrost, a radio tower blinked to life for the first time in 300 years. Its signal wasn't broadcasting. It was listening. Down in its base, an old Terran recording looped on analog. Systems. Not digital. Not AI, a voice. Female. Calm. Slightly cracked with age. If this plays, Earth is not lost. It is remembering itself. Phase 2 begins now. Beneath the tower, hibernating machines twitched. Above, auroras bent into impossible shapes, forming symbols older than human language. And in orbit, Halveth translators wept trying to interpret them. The grave dogs were no longer hiding. They moved like coordinated ghosts, silent, sleek, bone-plated war beasts. A single unit tore through a Halveth skirmisher battalion without firing a single shot. No screams, just silence. When the Halveth attempted retaliation, their weapons turned to ash mid-fire, as if the planet itself refused. Their violence. Meanwhile, humanity's other weapons, the ones never documented, began to activate. In the ruins of Kyoto, a temple sank into the ground. Beneath it, a buried mindscape AI known only as the Archivist woke. It had no body. It had memories. Memories of every species that ever betrayed humanity. Memories of the Halveth's first probe ship, decades ago, before they, officially, made contact, and how Earth had watched, waited, prepared. The Halveth Empire, spanning 2,000 worlds, suddenly went dark on 27 of them. No messages, no pings, no life, as if those worlds had never existed. Entire systems were forgotten. Even their own historians could no longer recall their names. Something was rewriting history in real time. Not human tech, something deeper. Something Terran. On board, the Dominion's war cruiser Vrel Zok, a high psionic officer named Javen attempted to interface with Earth's mental field again. This time he shielded his mind. Ran protocols. Triple failsafes. None of it mattered. What he saw was not a planet. It was a mind old fractured. Insane. And beneath the surface, a voice that shouldn't exist spoke directly into him. You trespass upon sovereign soul space. Return to the void. Or, be folded into the story, Javen screamed until his heart ruptured. His final words, we're not fighting humans. We're fighting what they left behind. The Halveth Conclave issued Retreat Order Delta. Get out! Get away. Regroup. But warp lanes had changed. Star paths were scrambled. Even their fastest vessels couldn't break away from Earth's orbit now. They were trapped by gravity signatures that no longer obeyed physics. One scientist finally snapped and whispered, the solar system is alive. And back on Earth, the last failsafe came online. A facility once called Kronos Vault blinked awake. Inside it, a map of the galaxy with entire sectors marked Blackout Zone, names of species that no longer existed, and a human man in tattered armor floating in suspension. His vitals lit up. His eyes opened. He whispered only one phrase. "How long was I gone?" The system replied, "7 centuries." He smiled. "Good. Then they've forgotten." Outside the vault, a black flag rose from the ground, bleached with a white skull and a starburst behind it. The old insignia of Terran Command, Ghost Division. They had tried to erase humanity, but Earth didn't need defense. Earth remembered. Earth waited. And now, Earth was hunting back. The Ghost Division wasn't a myth. It was our insurance, wiped from history, vanished at the height of the collapse. They were more than elite. They were cursed, trained not just to fight, but to disappear, even from memory. And now, they were returning. The Halveth fleet that tried to escape Jupiter's orbit found itself back over Earth. Again and again, no matter which direction they warped, like the stars themselves looped them in. Some screamed of déjà vu, others claimed to see Earth watching them, not with satellites, with eyes, real ones, buried in clouds, blazing in storms, and one day, Earth blinked. In the Sahara, sandstorms parted to reveal buried towers, razor-straight, obsidian black, humming like tuning forks. No doors, no windows, just presence. Inside one, a grave dog knelt before something vast and mechanical, pulsing with neural light. It whispered without sound, and the grave dog left with new instructions. "Do not kill the Halveth, let them see." Beneath the ruins of Johannesburg, a forgotten AI named Cavern broadcast for the first time in 400 years. Its signal didn't go out. It went inward, down into Earth's mantle, into networks only ancient Terran minds understood. And all across the world, things began to rise. Self-boring tanks from volcanic tubes flying relics shaped like predator birds, human-shaped machines with faces like skulls and skin like starlight. They didn't speak. They acted. On board the Halveth dreadnought Veil-Teric. Panic spread. The flagship's own weapons refused to fire. Orders were scrambled. Their star maps glitched. And then, an ancient Terran signal played through every device. "You are inside Echo Lock Protocol. No escape, no reinforcements. You came. Now. You stay." The bridge crew tried to cut power. The power cut them instead. They found their captain's body turned to crystal, his memories looping on every screen. Earth doesn't forget. Neither should you. At the edge of the Pacific Trench, old Terran suborbitals crashed into the sea, and something came up, massive, angular, a battleship with no propulsion. It rose through salt water as if buoyed by rage itself. On its hull, a single, word in flaking Terran Gothic, Reckoner. It had no crew, but it moved like it had a soul. Meanwhile, the Ghost Division, those still in hibernation, woke all across the planet. In ice vaults, underground ruins, inside asteroid craters. One by one. Not to fight, but to witness. To finish what they started. In a broken city, a Halveth scout stumbled upon a lone human child, no older than 7. She looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly, and said, "You're not the first." He hesitated. "The first what?" She smiled, sadly, to think we were forgotten. Then she vanished, and so did the scout's voice, his mind locked in an endless loop of Earth's wars, famines, and retribution. Aboard the Halveth High Command, Carrier. Their emissary finally admitted the truth. This was never conquest. This was our trial. They tried to pull back again, but the stars didn't move, and Earth whispered to every planet in the Halveth system. Your sin wasn't coming. It was forgetting why you stayed away. Across the Dominion, rebellions began. Old records resurfaced. Holos showing humanity's first exile. Voluntary, strategic, terrifying. The truth spread like wildfire. Earth was left alone not because it was weak, but because it chose to be a warning end. Now that warning was active. Above the clouds carved by orbiting dust storms, 4 words shimmered across Earth's upper atmosphere: "We are still here." The Halveth did everything right. They deployed psionic dampeners. They burned entire regions clean. They even offered surrender. None of it mattered, because they weren't fighting an army anymore. They were fighting Earth itself. In orbit, the Halveth. Ship Zuricon launched a last-ditch escape pod toward Saturn, 6 of their top tacticians aboard. It never arrived. It didn't explode. It didn't vanish. Instead, it landed, back on Earth, at the exact coordinates it launched from. One of the survivors stepped out and simply asked, "How long were we gone?" The others looked up and saw a second moon. No, not a moon, a cloaked station, one that blinked, and the sky answered in an old human voice, "You were always here." In Brazil's overgrown ruins, Halveth shock troops encountered a statue. It resembled a Terran soldier in ancient armor, holding a broken flag. They laughed until the statue turned its head. Not metal, not stone, something in between. It moved, and it spoke. "We never left. You just stopped looking." The laughter died. The squad died seconds later, without sound, without blood. All across the Halveth Empire, Earth-born corruption spread. Not viruses. Not code. Memory. Old human battle recordings began playing on Halveth education systems, footage they never archived. Footage of wars the Dominion said never happened. Footage of humans burning their own worlds, rather than surrendering. The Halveth. Senate attempted quarantine. Too late. Entire sectors began turning their fleets away from Earth, but they couldn't find the coordinates anymore. Maps rewrote themselves. Constellations blinked out. Earth was still there, but no longer accessible, except to the ones already trapped. Inside Kronos' vault, the Ghost Division commander, still only known as Stone, stood before the ancient console. He didn't look at the maps. He looked at the mirror. He saw himself, not old, not young, just unfinished, and beside him the AI whispered, "The planet has accepted full defense state identity protocol is now irreversible." Stone just nodded. "Tell them." In every Halveth ship, in every console, in every soldier's mind, a message burned across reality. Earth is not a location. Earth is a consequence. And then came the scream. From every speaker, every helmet, every soul, a frequency only invaders could hear, made from our pain. A Halveth general tried to end it all. He ordered the final bombardment, planet-cracking missiles, forbidden warheads. They launched, and halfway to the surface, they stopped, hung in air, turned around, and hovered in front of the command bridge like a warning. The warheads opened. Inside, not explosives. Bones. Human bones. Carbon dated to before the missiles launched. The Reckoner ship now floated over Europe, broadcasting nothing. But its shadow? It didn't match the ship. It was the shape of a massive Terran war god, 10 times larger, and when lightning struck, the shadow moved. From Mars to Titan, Dominion outposts tried self-destructs. Earth overrode them. From Pluto to the Kuiper Belt. Sleeper agents tried to warn other species. Earth intercepted them with a single phrase, "Let them come." Inside an ancient crater in Mongolia, a message carved in bedrock began to glow. It had been buried since before the pyramids. No tech. Just stone. One line. Translated by every race in their own tongue. The price of forgetting is remembering. Too late. In desperation, the Halveth sent a diplomat, not a warrior, not a spy, a child. barely of age, wrapped in peace robes, no weapons, no translator tech. Earth let her through. She stepped on Terran soil, she cried, and the earth itself, through. The wind replied, "One voice in peace is worth more than 1,000 in fear." She was spared, but she was marked. Her skin glowed faintly with old Earth sigils, and her eyes now mirrored the stars. She would carry the warning back, if Earth let her leave. Above the clouds, the words changed again. You left, we remained. Now you remember. The Halveth child returned, or so they thought. Her body walked, her voice still spoke, but her eyes no longer blinked, because she hadn't come back alone. She came with the memory of Earth's grief, embedded in her soul like a brand. When she opened her mouth to speak, her words weren't hers, they were ours. This was never about revenge, this was about remembrance. The Halveth tried to suppress the message, but it bled into their dreams, their machines, their children. Songs of ancient Earth, not of triumph, of warning, of fire, ash, and the will to survive after becoming monsters to do it. Across the stars, ancient. Species who had turned their backs on Earth centuries ago felt the ripple, one by one. They closed their gates again. Some prayed, some ran, a few prepared. But none dared speak the planet's name out loud anymore. Earth had become a myth with teeth. Meanwhile, above Earth's surface, satellites formed a new constellation. Deliberate, geometrical, broadcasting. Nothing, but visible from any corner of the solar system. Each satellite shaped like a Terran skull, staring outward, waiting. In the Great Halveth Archive, a hidden file activated, triggered by Earth's reawakening, an ancient, redacted intelligence brief from 500 years ago. It read, "Do not engage Terran core. Reason, unknown. Last interaction resulted in psychological collapse of entire." Fleet survivors reported Earth spoke back. All survivors later. Self-terminated recommendation. Earth is to be left alone. Status, closed. Dominion Order, 0001. They had known, they all had known, and buried the warning. Because fear doesn't inspire empires, but forgetting invites extinction. In the void, just outside Earth's atmosphere, something shifted. Not a ship, not a weapon, a rift. Tear-shaped, a doorway. But not for going in. It was for letting something out. The grave dogs, the ghost division, even the reckoner, all went still, as if waiting. And then, on every frequency, from quantum to neural to raw emotion, one final message echoed across the stars. You were not the first to challenge us. You will not be the last. But you will be the ones they remember. In the end, Earth didn't destroy the Halveth. It didn't have to. It made them remember, made them feel the weight of every Terran war, sacrifice, mistake, and miracle. It made them understand what they tried to conquer, and in doing so, Earth won, not with power, with presence. Generations later, children across the galaxy ask, why can't we go to Earth? Their elders speak the truth now, because Earth waits, and Earth watches, and Earth never forgets. Back on the silent, blue planet, the skies cleared, no more war machines, no more ghosts, just clouds, and beneath them, a world breathing quietly, peaceful, but ready, always ready, because in the end, we didn't make Earth a weapon, Earth made us one. The end.